Hi, I'm Carl Azus. Thank you for watching CNN 10 this October 3rd. We're starting with an overview of a mass shooting that took place Sunday night in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the U.S. state's most populated city. It's internationally famous for its extravagant hotels, casinos, and entertainment. And it was during an outdoor country music concert on the Las Vegas Strip that gunfire was heard just after 10 o'clock on Sunday night. There were around 22,000 people at the show. Police say the crowd was targeted by a single gunman on the 32nd floor of a nearby hotel. At least 58 people were killed and more than 500 others were taken to hospitals. This was the worst mass shooting in modern American history. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the incident on Monday morning.
We are joined together today in sadness, shock, and grief. Last night, a gunman opened fire on a large crowd at a country music concert. It was an act of pure evil.
Jason Aldean, who was performing at the time of the attack, was unharmed. He described it as beyond horrific and said his thoughts and prayers went out to everyone who was there. Support and sympathy poured in from the U.S. Capitol and around the world, with U.S. government leaders praising the efforts of the first responders. Police found the suspected gunman dead inside his hotel room. They believe he killed himself. He was identified as a 64-year-old man named Stephen Paddock, but the Las Vegas sheriff said law enforcement had no knowledge of the man and that he didn't know how this could have been prevented. He also said officials were not calling the shooting a terrorist attack at this time.
Well, we have to establish what his motivation is first, and there's motivating factors associated with terrorism other than a distraught person just intending to cause mass casualty.
Is it terrorism? A much repeated question that's asked by government agencies in the wake of an attack. And while it seems simple at first, making a call can be a struggle.
The deadly terror attack.
In 2015, there were almost 15,000 acts of terror in the world. The problem is that there's no internationally recognized definition for terrorism. The UN has been debating it for years. The FBI defined terrorism as the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof in furtherance of political or social objectives. So, essentially, it comes down to motive. Was there a political or ideological agenda behind the attack?
Next, a political crisis in the European nation of Spain. The government of Catalonia, a region of Spain, says its people have earned the right to independence. It says 90% of those who voted in a controversial referendum on Sunday were in favor of splitting off from Spain. But turnout was 42% of Catalans. Spain's government had banned the vote, and police raided polling stations, pulling voters away and confiscating ballot boxes. Catalan officials say almost 900 people were injured in violence during the referendum. They've called on the European Union to step in and mediate the crisis. But the EU, which spoke out against the violence, has sided with the Spanish government in calling the Catalan vote illegal. The EU says it trusts Spain's president to manage the issue. More details on the vote and the responses to it are in yesterday's show at CNN10.com. Staying in Europe but moving north. It's not the first time an airline has gone out of business, but this is the first time that one this big suddenly collapsed and canceled all of its flights. The carrier is Monarch Airlines. It's been around since the 1960s, giving budget flights around Europe and the Mediterranean. And its failure affects 110,000 people stuck without a flight home to the UK and 750,000 booked on future flights. It's the third European airline to go out of business since August. More competition, a shortage of pilots, and terrorist attacks in some destination countries have all factored in.
Disruption is inevitable. That's something that no traveler ever wants to hear, but that's exactly what the UK government is saying is bound to happen now that Monarch Airlines is non-functional. The UK is essentially setting up its own temporary mini airline to go and get the people who are in various countries who are supposed to come back to the UK today and in the following weeks. And take a look at this incredible statement from the head of the authority that's now overseeing these flights, Chris Grayling, saying, quote, "That is why I have immediately ordered the country's biggest ever peacetime repatriation to fly about 110,000 passengers who could have otherwise been left stranded abroad." Now, the UK government is telling those people, do not go to the airport. They want those folks to go to a new temporary website replacing the previous Monarch Airlines website.
10-second trivia. A cycad is a type of what? Plant, insect, bicycle, or circuit? Characterized by a palm-like appearance, cycads are types of plants. And one interesting thing about cycads is that scientists believe there used to be many more of them than there are today. In fact, some of those that do exist today could soon become extinct in the wild. How? One example comes from today's Great Big Story, our new series showing you fascinating people, places, and even rare plants from around the world.
This is the story of a plant, but not just any plant. It is the story of a plant that long, long ago once ruled the world. A plant that today is the very last of its kind. It's this plant behind me, Encephalatus woodii, E. woodii for short, and I've been looking after it for over 20 years. It was named for British botanist John Medley Wood, who in 1895 discovered it growing on a hillside on the coast of South Africa. A strange, handsome plant caught his eye, and he carefully removed a small portion of it and had it shipped all the way to London, to here, Kew Gardens, where it's been for the last 117 years. But its history goes much, much further back. You see, Encephalatus woodii is what is known as a cycad, and cycads have been around for 300 million years. As the millennium rolled on, cycads flourished, providing shade for triceratops, a perch for pterodactyls, and a tasty snack for brontosauruses. At one point during the Jurassic, cycads made up 20% of all the plants on Earth and covered every corner of the globe. But the good times couldn't last forever. The dinosaurs went extinct. Ice ages came and went. New modern plants like conifers and fruit trees started pushing cycads out. And the once proud population of E. woodii were reduced and reduced and reduced until there was possibly only one left. One single solitary E. woodii growing quietly on a hillside. Which brings us right back to John Medley Wood. At the time, he had no way of knowing just how rare his discovery was. But expedition after expedition in search of more E. woodii have proved fruitless. You see, cycads are dioecious, meaning you need separate male and female plants to create a new one. And this one happens to be a male, a true lonely bachelor. If a female mate cannot be found, it really will be the last of its kind. To this day, researchers are still looking. After all, it's a big world and might just be a chance. In the meantime, he'll have me to keep him company.
New York City's Kosciuszko Bridge has joined the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens since 1939, but for one of its old spans, that changed earlier this week.
1, fire!
That's the sound of 22 million pounds of steel coming down in a controlled blast. A replacement span for the bridge has already opened up. so you can trust that drivers won't be left in suspense trying to piece together a new foundation for their commutes to span the challenge, bridge the gap, traverse troubled water, get around the cap, or overcome the barrier of an abridged bridge. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10.